Okay, so first of all, thank you for allowing me to record this meeting.
Yeah, no
My
problem.
my project is basically I'm making a website where people can go and learn about AI. Anybody can learn about AI, so in simple terms, it's not going to be very complicated. And they can, so for example, I'm a high school student and I want to take, I go on a career road. I'll go to this website and I can learn if this career is actually going to be obsolete in the future due to AI.
Okay.
So I believe you reviewed my website.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
I thought it was a cool idea. I think it would be a good resource for, as you said, high school students trying to figure out what they may want to study in university, or if they want to go to university at all, and kind of what careers they may want to go into.
Great, thanks. So first of all, tell me about yourself, your profession choice, and how you came to be where you are.
Yeah, sure thing. So since I guess our main target audience here is high school students, I can kind of go back to those days and essentially say in most of kind of my school years, I had mostly been interested in math and physics and the rest of the sciences. The thing I liked most was finding creative solutions to some of the problems that we would encounter, and really just thinking about some interesting problems, whether they're realistic or just good mental exercises, and try to find solutions to them. So that's kind of how I found my way to an engineering degree. In university, I basically studied computer engineering. And then those years, kind of, I took a bunch of courses that varied in topic, from some software engineering courses to some in control theory to communications, and ended up deciding to pursue a PhD in artificial intelligence, just because I wanted to kind of get a bit more specialized. And that's kind of how I ended up at IBM after getting a PhD in AI.
That's awesome. So what is your job at IBM?
I'm a researcher who essentially tries to find or to use AI as a solution to certain problems. Specifically, the project that I've been working on tries to make AI more accessible and effective in solving problems for automation in the business world. So you have these big enterprise companies where a lot of their employees are subject matter experts in the domain that they're in, but are not necessarily computer engineers or AI specialists or stuff like that. And they want to leverage AI in their work. And we try to make it easier for them to do that.
So why were you interested in AI?
I think the main reason was I get easily bored with kind of just the same topic. And I also always found almost everything interesting. It was difficult to find one topic I really liked and everything else that I did not like. So even just kind of deciding to specialize in computer engineering, it wasn't like it was the only thing I liked and everything else I did not like. So AI provided this tool where you can really apply it to many other domains. And whenever you wanted to apply it to this new domain, you had to learn about that domain, at least at a very basic level. And so working in AI essentially allowed me to not get as bored as quickly. And then the other thing was it's a fast evolving field. So almost every year, or even a couple of months, you think something is relevant and suddenly it becomes obsolete, and then you need to learn something new. So that also prevents you from getting bored easily.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts about the impact of AI on the economy in general and on increasing poverty in particular?
Well, I think I mean, specifically for poverty, there are many factors that can affect poverty. Now, AI and the economy and its effects on poverty specifically, at the end of the day, AI is just a tool, right? And you can use this tool to help advance society. So in one case, you can use AI to reduce poverty, for example, in farming. If you make farming more efficient by leveraging AI, then you're essentially reducing hunger and eventually poverty. If, let's say, you're using AI to predict natural disasters, that's also another way to reduce poverty that is a result of natural disasters. But again, you can also kind of, if we're not careful, end up misusing AI, and then we end up widening the gap between the richer countries and the poorer countries, or even the richer people and the poorer people. So I think it's a tool, and we need to know how to use it to not negatively impact the economy and, as a result, increase poverty, but try to make the economy more efficient, more eco-friendly, and as a result, help people focus on the things that they like doing, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think of the people who are against AI, meaning that they think it's not good for humanity?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, AI is a tool, and you can, like all other pieces of technology, you can use it for good or you can use it for really bad applications. And it is kind of on everyone, the people in AI and the people outside of AI, to make sure that we put enough safeguards in place to leverage AI for good and minimize how it can be leveraged for bad. So examples of that are, let's say, the areas of AI ethics and policymaking that need to guide what innovations happen in AI. So we make sure we're creating AI for good as opposed to for bad. And then, yeah, I think it's really important for kind of people, not just in the AI community, but also outside of the community, to be very proactive about being involved in how AI is used in our community, and essentially reduce the chances of it being a detriment to our society.
Yeah, okay. Do you think high school students should worry about AI, basically replacing their future careers?
I don't think so. I feel like, as with everything in technology, you're going to have certain careers or professions that become obsolete, but also you're going to end up creating new professions that maybe had never existed before. So I wouldn't say they have to worry. I think they should be aware of it, and in some cases leverage it, even if they're not in an AI career. So for example, in medicine or in law, right, you can leverage AI to make your profession better. Doesn't mean that you just have to be an AI researcher or a computer engineer to use AI.
Yeah, okay. So what jobs do you think will be fully taken over by AI?
So in the short term, which maybe is like in the next 5-10 years, something like that, AI would really be able to handle a lot of the highly repetitive, mundane tasks that aren't necessarily very mentally engaging. or require a lot of creativity. So an example of that would be something like data entry, where for a very long time, a lot of jobs were created just to manage the enormous amount of data in enterprises, whether it's kind of employee data or client data, etc. So I think AI would kind of get started in those places. Also in things like you need to process a lot of data to get to decision making, and not necessarily use AI for decision making, but use it as a tool to help make recommendations to professionals who don't necessarily have all the time to sift through tons and tons of data. So that's probably also another place where AI can be really useful in the short term.
Okay, so it will basically give us more options.
Yeah, and essentially you're more informed, right, when you're trying to make these decisions, where as opposed to having a doctor needing to review hundreds and hundreds of similar cases before they can make a better diagnosis, they can have that information available at their fingertips. Now, it's not the AI who's making the diagnosis, it's still the doctor. But now the doctor is more informed when making that decision in a smaller amount of time, basically.
Okay, so basically in the medicine area, AI won't replace doctors completely, but will give them more options and basically ease their job.
Yeah.
Okay. So what skills, abilities, attitudes, and knowledge should a student who wants to study AI have?
I would say the first thing is liking to be a lifelong learner. So because of how quickly the field evolves, you always have to learn new things. And you can't just say, I spent 5 years studying this one thing and I'm going to use it for the next 50 years, right? That's not the right mindset to go into such a career. Another thing is being very curious, because you do have to keep learning new things. And if you're not interested in, or you don't have the curiosity to learn new things, it would be a bit of a challenge.
Okay. And is it true that AI professions are only reserved for math geniuses and maybe physics?
No, I don't think that's true. I mean, you definitely have kind of math as the foundation of AI, or the way that you would create your algorithms. You need to understand some math, but also there's a lot of applications of AI where the software has become simplified to a point where you're really just calling a function or something, where you don't necessarily have to understand all of the math behind the algorithm to use AI. So you definitely don't have to be just interested in math or physics to use AI as a tool, right? It's just another tool in addition to a bunch of other tools that can make your job easier.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Very interesting questions. Hopefully, my answers will be useful to the people who are listening to this.
Yeah, very.